Theme song for the Gear Podcast after 3 weeks. Leon, how you going, buddy?
Bloody lovely, mate. How are you?
Not too bad. It's it's been a couple of weeks between drinks. You're on the East Coast, West Coast now. How does that feel?
I'm in damp, soggy Sydney at the moment. Mate, people will claim things about the East Coast that maybe are a little unfair. Mm-hmm. East Coast bias in the football and things like that.
Yep.
But as the patron saint of this podcast, David King, would say, now, Troy, people tell me that it's a big city. It definitely is. But I'm surviving at the moment.
What's the coffee situation like?
It's not bad. There's a few places around here. So for reference, for anyone just dipping their toe in the water, I'm currently in Sydney playing with a cabaret show for the next 2 months. So 6 shows a week. I think there's 50-something shows in total. So we've done 7 at the time of recording this. So feeling good about the first 8th of the show. I'm staying in Randwick. It's right near Centennial Park, which itself butts up against the entertainment quarter where the show is. So anyone who knows their cricket or their footy, that's near the SCG. Then there's this giant park that we walk through to get there, and then there's the Ecom. So yeah, there's a pretty good cafe in the park that I've been to a few times. So the coffee situation's good. I bought my AeroPress as well. So I've also been doing that, just the convenience of not having to walk down the road if I don't want to. Mm-hmm. And also, not spending a whole bunch of money on coffee where it's like, okay, every other day I'll go out somewhere. But Troy, get this. There's a cafe just down the road, and I went in and got a coffee, and it was delicious. And I sat down, and what starts playing? Nothing Else Matters by Metallica.
All right.
At 10 in the morning. They're just and cranked,
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, okay, cool. Bit of Metallica in the morning. The next track, November Rain. So
were you the only person in there?
The hits.
Did they see you come in?
Basically, they were like, this guy's from Perth. These are the only songs you're allowed to play on the radio in Perth, so let's give it to him.
Yep. Hey, just slightly unrelated, because I meant to message you this outside. This is not related to anything, but everyone can just listen in. Is there a significance to the band Hardline to us?
Oh, there is to me. So I, in the folklore of Leon Todd, my dad, when I was about 15, so I've been playing guitar for about a year, mm-hmm. He went into like a Sanity or something, and there were he bought 4 double CD compilation albums called mm-hmm. The Finest of Hard Rock, Volume 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yep.
And he was like, oh, hey, I picked these up for like $5 or something, check them out. There's probably some good rock music on there. I think it was a compilation done by like a Swiss label or something. So,
okay.
Yeah, the first time I heard Sabotage, the first time that I heard Still of the Night by Whitesnake, the first time that I heard Hardline, the song Hot Cherie was on there. And I remember hearing, in particular, Edge of Thorns by Sabotage and being like, oh my God, this is amazing. I want to like play heavy guitar now and not just Gary Moore. And yeah, the song Hot Cherie I really liked. And I was like, man, this band's awesome. Great guitar, great singing. So the album Double Eclipse, which came out in 1992, I think they were a pair of brothers in the band.
That album there?
So is that now on Spotify?
No.
But it's not on Spotify. It's really annoying.
Yeah.
So Neil Schon played guitar on the first album.
Okay.
And one of the first recordings, commercially available recordings of a 7-string.
Really?
On the song Rhythm from a Red Car, he borrowed Steve Vai's Universe.
Right. Okay. Well,
and it's in just B. But I remember hearing it being like, man, this sounds chunky.
That's cool.
So yeah, that if you listen to Double Eclipse by Hardline, it's one of those things like, for me, like the first Blue Murder album, where you hear it and you're just like, oh yeah, cool.
Things have changed.
So all the things Ragdoll try to do are just this.
Yep. The only reason I bring it up is, a friend of ours who's from Sydney, Andrew, plays drums. I was at his house a couple of days ago, and he had a couple of VHS tapes for starters that were awesome. It was like a Winger VHS, and I think it was I want to say it was like Rat. No, it was.
He's one of us.
Yeah, totally. But it was. I think it was a Skid Row VHS that had 3D glasses with it as well. It was awesome. So anyway, we're just talking about that, and he's like, oh, and he had this Hardline album, and he's got, man, it was just sitting there, And I was like, Hardline, I recognize that name for some reason. And we're talking about it. And he's like, man, this album is just unreal. I can't find it on streaming or anything like that, like what you just said.
He's correct.
Yeah. So anyway, but I couldn't remember the significance of it, of the band. Like maybe I'd...
Yeah, that's the riff for Hot Cherie, everybody. Go and listen to that song.
Yeah.
But like the singer, Johnny Joely, I think his name is, he went on to, like, he's done a bunch of other stuff. And, you know, great rock vocalist. Like, he's just got that sound where you're like, yep, that's from an era that will never be replicated, you know? One of my favorite singers from that era.
Yeah.
But yeah, that album's just a bit of a unicorn where it's like, yeah, I think Sean got in, he was in Bad English and left Bad English and then did the Hardline thing. And, you know, it was 1992, so the rest is history. But I think they're still big in Europe and Italy especially because of the connection with the Italian-American brothers.
It's funny with Sean because, like, I've not really ever dug his outside of Journey stuff. I've tried like random albums like in stuff in the 2000s, but
you know what I was showing someone the other day because I remembered about it. I feel like I was talking about Hardline to someone and Soul Circus. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
album?
that was what I'm talking about. Soul Circus. I think I downloaded that, and it just didn't really do it for me. But maybe with age, I'd enjoy it now.
It was one of those things where it's like, okay, cool. You guys are going through your Led Zeppelin phase.
Yep.
Because I think they had two different versions of the album, like one with Michael Anthony and Castronovo, and then another one with Marco Mendoza and someone else on drums. Or maybe I've got it kind of mixed up. But
yeah, I can't remember what I had. I can like picture the album on a hard drive that I had with all of my like illegally procured music in 2005 or 6.
So I think they did that, and then Soto filled in for Journey on a tour.
That's
they
right.
Had,
yeah, because he was in the band for like 2 years or something, right?
Yeah. So they had Steve Augeri after Steve Perry. And great singer. Actually, I have a buddy who plays with Steve Augeri. Shout out to Adam if you're listening to this. He's a killer guitar player. Like, he just hit me up for some Fractal stuff because he's using an FM3 with Augeri. I was like, oh, what's your gig, bro? And he was like, yeah, we're doing this thing with Steve Augeri, playing heaps of Journey songs. I was like, that's sick. And then, Soto, and then they got Arnell, obviously.
Sean's on Fractals as well, right?
Yeah, all Fractal. I think he has some amps, like he's got a couple of EVH heads for his stage sound, but the sound the audience hears is FM9. Yeah,
that's cool.
That's pretty rad. I just love his Instagram as well.
I don't think I'd follow him on Instagram. I'll check it out.
Oh, dude, you got it. It's an energy because it's just like, hey, here's some amazing guitar that I just got. And then it's him just Neil Shonning the shit out of it, you know, just like playing as intensely as possible.
Yeah. Do you follow Coverdale on any social media?
No, but every now and then something will come up and it's just, you know, he's America's favorite English grammar.
Well, his Twitter is just reposting like just memes like dad jokes and stuff. And then his Instagram is just, there's a lot of pictures of his feet. Like, what are you doing, man? But anyway, that's
so
cool.
I've been, you know, there's someone, I think the previous inhabitants of this apartment had logged into Stan. So I'm just watching someone's Stan account at the moment. But I watched the first two Godfather movies because I'd never seen them all the way through.
Mate, we watched the first Godfather movie on the way to America in 2012.
Yeah, but I fell asleep.
I know you did. I stayed awake. I stayed the course.
Yeah, you sat through it. So anyway, great movies. Loved it. And then because I was in a kind of gangster movie mood, I was like, oh, Reservoir Dogs is on here. So I watched that and then I was like, I'm just kind of like milling around the apartment, cooking and doing some stuff. I'll put Pulp Fiction on. So now I'm just in a thing. But you know the thing with Tarantino and feet, right?
Oh, yeah. He loves them. Big fan.
So I can't watch those movies the same way anymore because it's just like, it's the space between scenes with close-ups of feet.
Yep, pretty much.
So yeah.
Big fan.
Anyway, obviously
He'd love
Coverdale.
David Coverdale's Instagram page, probably.
Yeah, there you go. Get around it, Quentin.
Yeah, like shout out, little hot tip for you. Anyway, Uncle Leon.
My dad famously as well, you know my mate Tim.
Yep.
Yeah, my dad just calls him Quentin. Because one day he was like, you look like Quentin Tarantino, man. Where's the camera?
Maybe I can see that.
This was when he was like 18.
Right.
So
okay.
it is just stuck. Anytime he sees him, it's like, where's the camera, man? So yeah, fantastic. But mate, we are the gear podcast, not the foot
it's only
fetish
been 10 minutes
podcast.
of... We
only
haven't
been
seen each
10
other and
minutes.
spoken for a little bit, so people can just bloody deal with it.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got to... What have I got to do? Keep my energy level down because apparently I'm difficult to listen to, so I'll make sure I just keep it a bit toned for that.
I feel like there's a good Iron Sheik quote that you could just bring up there. And the initials would be GFYJ.
I was going to... I thought you were going to say, fuck Hulk Hogan and that too.
Oh, right. No,
But,
there's many other things. But, mate, I've got this in my hands, so I want to talk about... and people hopefully have seen the video that I did with it, because I got it back from Tim, patron saint of the channel.
Tim messaged me just as we started this podcast, actually.
Me too, because there's the Kip Winger on Vito thing, right?
Oh, is that what it is? Okay, I didn't open the thing yet because I was talking to you. So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching a bit
That's
of
cool.
Kip.
Even though I really can't stand Rick Beato, so
yeah, the love for Winger outweighs that by a massive amount for me.
Sorry,
so
everybody, to just
I'll
be
be
that
checking
guy.
that one out.
But I'll watch it. I'll watch it for Kip.
Yeah. Anyway, 335. So yeah, he refretted and pleked this, and man, I need to get the input jack sorted. It's like every now and then it just cuts out a little bit, and that's my fault for not checking it.
Are you playing that at the gigs, or are you playing the rubato?
I was going to play this. So I just need to, like I said, I need to
Right.
ironclad this and get some contact cleaner or something in it and make sure it's good. But I've got this. This is my I've got 3 guitars with me.
Oh,
you know,
God.
in the name of excess. So this is my apartment guitar. And it's sick, man. I've been playing it so much. I'm loving the way it, like, you know, we'll get into the history of this thing in a second, but I've been playing the DGT for the gigs.
Oh, okay.
And I've got the rubato there as a backup, but
The US or
I've got
the SE one?
the US one, yeah. So, because I figured I'd bring this because, you know, it's got this in a fucking tent with a cabaret show. It's a bit of a vibe.
Yep.
And yeah, did all the rehearsals with it, but yeah, I had like 1 or 2 issues where it just cut out a little bit, which obviously don't want it to happen. So I bought the DGT so I could play it here, but playing the DGT for the show, and it's sick. I'm loving it. But yeah, this thing is so what is this? This is a 1979 ES335 TD. It's got the coil split. That's a very unique little thing. It's got this, you know, this thing here. So if you want to play some...
Oh, yeah.
You know, behind the bridge, widdly. It's cool, man. You know, this guitar's got a lot of character. So my dad bought this guitar at some point in the 80s, I think. And he used to play it live when he was gigging around. There's photos of him playing it. And it's pretty much all original. I think the tuners have been changed to Grover Imperials.
Right.
So that's I don't know if he did that or it was like that, but... Yeah, look, it's in pretty good condition. There's some wear and tear on there. But,
but it feels comfortable, man. That's a really
it's
nice neck.
Yeah, comfy neck, great sounds. Like the neck pickup in particular has that thing where it's not muddy or anything. It's really nice and crisp, and you know, you can run a whole bunch of gain through it. And you know, we kind of was that the Here Today EP we were doing, or the next one where it was sort of like we stumbled across a cool recipe for using this guitar.
I think it was in the second one.
Yeah, where we're kind of like, it was like, okay, cool, we want some fuzz sounds and we want some really nasty sounds. So it was like this into like a swollen pickle into like a Tiny Terror or an AC30.
Yeah.
Just layering up riffs with it. And it was that was kind of the magic seasoning on a lot of stuff, hey?
Yeah, that's... and I think for me, I hadn't really played 335's until that period, and it took me a little while to still appreciate it and get into them. And I'll talk about mine a little bit later, but yeah, it's funny. I think like I used to look at those guitars and think, oh, it's a jazz guitar, you know, it's an old band's guitar, not really appreciating the fact that it's got the big solid block in the middle, so it doesn't sound like a Les Paul, but it sort of maybe has a little bit, like shares a bit of DNA with that. And so I think when we're doing the rock stuff, I was like, oh no, it's going to sound too like, the way it looks, I feel like it should have this like tubbiness to it and this like bloat to it. And it doesn't, that's not really the way it sounds. Like your guitar.
It's kind of the opposite. Yeah. It's quite lean and It's like all the good things about a Les Paul, but maybe without some of the not so good things about it.
Yeah.
I've just realized there's a screw missing from the
From the
one of the tuners on here, like right back there. That's an easy fix.
Yeah. So that guitar,
what was I gonna say?
I actually thought it was.
Yeah.
I thought it was a 76. Obviously it's not, but like I think that's what I was sort of under the impression for a long time. And then it was funny because like I think you'll remember Steve, who we bought some guitars off in the past. He's not too far from here. He imports a lot of stuff from Japan. I bought my Les Paul off this guy maybe about 10 years ago now, actually.
Yep.
But when we were at his house, he had, I think it was a 72 335 that looks very much like your one.
Yeah, yeah.
And I played that, and I think you played that one as well. And it's just they're very similar, but there's just something so comfortable about it. And it was like
and this is a thing, right? So we're both like 6'1", 6'2" ish.
Yep.
In the old language, 180 plus centimeters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we've mentioned this before, but it's like, you know, we play a Strat or a Les Paul, and it is a bit cartoonish. It's like when you see Paul Gilbert on stage, right? He's a lot taller than us, but he's got an Ibanez, and you're like, man, that thing kind of looks like a ukulele in his hands. Whereas, you know, you get an Explorer or a 335, and it's a bigger body guitar. It's really, because of that, where the curves are actually kind of correspond to where parts of your body are.
Yeah.
And it's comfy.
I mean, the people that got
light.
around that were like Bucketheads got that like oversized Les Paul sort of shape. Which, have you ever played those guitars before?
I've never played one, no, but I gave someone some lessons who had one.
Yeah. I played one at the Gibson shop in Memphis like 12 years ago.
Yeah, right.
It was okay. It didn't really do it for me so much. But then there's like, you know that guy Jared James Nichols?
Yes.
Who's like huge. Like, I think he's like 6'5" or something. And like
he's
built like a wrestler.
He's wrestling. Yeah. When you realize that, you're like, you've just got a wrestler's persona, and you play guitar with the like ferocity of like a kind of golden era wrestler. It's awesome.
He gets away with playing a small Les Paul style thing. But it's just he's imposing with that.
You know the way he plays guitar. You know what we'd say down here. He makes the guitar piss. Yeah. You know when someone just you know, they're like, oh man, yeah, see that fight, that UFC? Yeah, he made him piss. Like that's JJN just on a guitar. He just manhandles it. Yeah,
you know, that's what Fremantle did to the Demons the other day. Just made him piss. So
to the tune of 92 piss points.
But yeah, and so like, I like your guitar. I liked this 72 that I played 10 years ago. And then I've said this before, but like when I was in Adelaide, I played another guitar that looked identical to that one and this other one. And now with a bit of age and experience and not just trying to play shred licks and playing a bit more like chords and just like playing lead guitar a bit differently, I had a moment with that guitar and I'm like, why the fuck haven't I got onto 335's in the past? But for me, it all started with yours because it's just like, it felt so comfortable to play. I'm really glad you got that back up in action. Like it's
yeah, man, it's a vibe machine. Hey, it's a really great guitar.
Yeah, I said this on the podcast I think a couple of weeks ago, where like you gaffer taped the strings at one point.
That's right.
After saying that you were never going to change the strings on it, and then you know gaffer tape doesn't really come off that easily, so that was kind of the end of that chapter.
Yeah.
But I'm glad
we are.
Yeah, I'm glad you did change the strings because it's. I don't know if Tim would have like happily put the like 15-year-old strings back on it.
Yeah, that wouldn't have worked so well. But also it's, you know, my dad bought this guitar because when he was growing up, his favorite guitar player was Alvin Lee. Right. Like anyone who's seen the Woodstock movie, you know, 10 years after come out, and he was like, you know, at the time, before your Yngwie Malmsteens and your Eddie Van Halens, like that was he was, you know, the shred lord, you know, that anyone unfamiliar with it, go and watch the Woodstock movie and listen to like Going Home because he steals the show. You know, he comes out and he's got that lick that. You know, he's just like milking that blues scale thing. But it's so impressive and it's ferocious. And he's playing this red. I can't remember if it was a 335 or a 345. So there's that for him is why he bought that guitar. But, you know, the thing for me when I think of 335 players, I think of Alex Lifeson. I don't think of B.B. King or anyone like that. I like getting into Rush in a big way and especially like the Russian Rio video. When he comes out, he's got that white, I think it's actually a 345.
Okay.
It's got the veritone. I think it's probably disconnected, but or is it a 355? So we should talk about the like history of these things. But yeah, that was like, oh my god, this guy sounds incredible. He's getting all these different tones and textures out of it, and he's like a bigger guy, so it's to scale. And yeah, white ES, and it's just like that's cool. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's my I feel like you always need that sometimes, where it's like, I know a lot of people love Explorers because Hetfield, like, if you're into Metallica, it's such an iconic thing, like seeing him. Yeah, exactly. That's the...
Not because of Hetfield, but,
Yeah. I mean, or the Scorpions or something. It's like just, you have that, like, Explorers are cool,
Yeah.
Or Racer X with the Ice Destroyer.
That's probably where I most resonate, weirdly enough. That guitar, that Explorer, man, I've really got on with it now. It's it takes me it takes me a minute to get comfortable again. It's there's something about the neck profile that's maybe a bit different to my other Gibson guitars and certainly other guitars. Feels like maybe it's like a little deeper on the sides, like where you put your thumb. Anyway, it's kind of hard to describe. It's not like a thin, it's like ultra thin or anything like that. Did I tell you I put new pickups in that? Finally?
No, tell me all about it.
Yeah, because I went through, I wanted to replace it because the pickups that were in there were just really hot. And I noticed on certain, firstly, I'm using that for the Dockers games through my AX8. So every time I would plug it in, it was just way overdriving the input of the fractal, which, I'm sure I could have got in there and changed that somehow, but I end up just like turning the gain down a little bit on the patch that I use, and that was all right, but maybe it didn't sound quite the way I wanted it to sound. So anyway, I don't even know what pickups were in there. It's whatever Gibson was putting in the guitars like 10 years ago. I think it's 13 years ago. But yeah, it just didn't. They felt a little fuzzy as well on certain other amps. Maybe it's just because they were so hot, they were just driving things a little hard. But I just didn't really dig it. So anyway, I got a Duncan Jazz for the neck because I found that locally really cheap. And then I really wanted to get a custom because I liked that I've got one in my PRS SE that sounds really good. I was pretty set on that. Yeah. But
I mean, great pickup set.
And then I bought the wrong one. I bought a like Trembucker size one that didn't work. But anyway, a 59 like SH1 came up for sale, like literally a minute from my house. So I put that in there, and man, it's fucking awesome. Interestingly enough, I've had a Duncan 59 in the neck before. Like that's what's in that PRS SE, and I don't really like it that much. It might just be that guitar, but it's just a little too boomy sounding, a little like too big. But that pickup, or like the bridge equivalent of that, is like very much the same sort of sound that I like out of the Duncan Custom. So that was cool. Quite surprising. So it sounds really great. However, the one thing that is annoying, and Tim, if you're listening to this, it needs a plec. For some reason, when I took the strings off, by the way, installing these pickups, fucking dickhead over here. I was like, I had it open on the bench, and I was like, it literally took an hour for me to feed the wires through the guitar.
Yeah.
And the reason was Leon. Let me just grab the guitar because it's probably easier to show.
I mean, it's probably not as bad as if you had to redo the pickups on a 335 or something, where you got to get tubes and all that kind of crap.
Do you know what took me an hour to realize? It took me an hour to realize that I could take this pick guard off, and that under the pick guard is a gigantic cavity. So like I was literally feeding wire.
The Panama Canal.
Man, I was feeding cable through, and I was like, I've put like this much length of wire through. How has it not appeared from the other side? I could not work out what was happening. I was like, this is just ridiculous. And then finally it's like, I'll take the pick guard off. Okay, like fucking moron. So that was annoying. But it sounds good now. What was I going to say?
Happy days, brother.
Mate, the happiest of days. We're talking about 335's, so screw Explorers. That's not the topic of the day. But
really quickly. So these guitars came out. The ES stands for Electric Spanish, right?
Yep.
So obviously, with the advent of the Les Paul, you had Gibson then making a solid body electric guitar. And they were making electric guitars that had fully hollow bodies, right? So there's some absolute stonking classic archtop guitars. And, that's also one of the ways kind of Gibson made their name. They had their acoustic guitars and then they had their archtop guitars.
Yep.
And originally, what we now call like jazz boxes, right? They had arch tops, which were thin and carved so that they would be louder. You're in the volume wars, the original volume wars, where it's like you've got horn sections and stuff like that. And, rather than the guitar just be an accompanying instrument, if you want to be like a lead instrument, and then, Charlie Christian puts a pickup in his guitar and suddenly the guitar player can be a soloist as well. And then with that comes a lot of issues with volume and feedback and things like that. So the clever people at Gibson at the time, you put a solid block of wood in the middle and you mount the pickups and the bridge and everything to it, and you still have your archtop design and F-holes and all that kind of thing. So acoustically, it's quite a loud instrument, but you can work around some of the issues with feedback that you'd get with fully archtop guitars at volumes,
Yeah.
And yeah, they had the 335 and then the 345, which added a what they call a veritone. And so I've got a 345 replica that my dad actually made, and we put a veritone in it. And it's like a cool thing. I think it uses an inductor. So a couple of the settings sound like you've rolled the tone control all the way off. A couple of them sound like you've split the coils. And then they had the 355, or the 355, which I believe had stereo output. So it was, and different inlays. And so the 335 is kind of like your base model, your core model. And then the plus 10 versions and the plus 20 versions have some extra features on there. I'm actually going to go through.
I'll grab mine
what
too.
makes. Yeah. So Alex Lifeson, for example, has a 355. And, the differences. So, So you had a mono version and then also a stereo version on there. So that's a pretty interesting thing. So you can run 2 amps or something like that.
Hey, do me a favor. Hold your guitar like this. Like just up, slightly more upright. I feel like my bits here are like a little thicker than yours.
Yeah, so there's also slight differences with the cutaways, right?
Yep.
Yours has more of the like Mickey Mouse ears.
Yep.
I think this is the 70s ones are kind of, they're mutants. They're not exactly the same.
I really like
thing.
the way they look though, man. They're really comfortable to hold too, just having it be not quite as chunk in that bit. Because this one is actually before I talk about this, because like that guitar, I never really asked, should it have been more red, but it just fades over time, or is that more or less the color it came out?
Yeah, so it's interesting that I've seen people call this various things. People are like, oh, it's walnut, but it's not. They did a walnut one, which is like walnut color.
Yep.
Right, so it's actually brown. This is kind of like, it's quite purpley. So I've seen people call it ox blood, but I think originally it was like a wine red. But if you look at 335 TDs in this color online, they've all got the same hue about them, right?
Yep.
So I think it's whatever was going on with the finish.
It's really, not really satiny, but it feels more satiny as well. That guitar and others of that era, I really like it.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, I don't know what's going on with the finish. It's got that kind of like, you can't buff out this like milky hue from it, no matter, I don't know, it's just the lacquer's interacted with some kind of cleaner or something like that.
That's something that I love about that, man. It just feels a bit more like an old pair of jeans.
And
it's
100%.
like this guitar is slightly different. This is a dot, so it's got the dot inlays on it.
Yeah. So I guess yours is more like the classic 50 spec.
Yeah.
Kind of
Flame
335.
Flame maple top on it, which is really, really pretty. I haven't changed anything. It's been plecked, but it's otherwise, I think it's basically as it is. I think this was a Japanese model, like as in like for the Japanese market. It's like USA, but I think it.
So it is interesting. A lot of the guitars made for the Japanese market, like the Japanese guitar market's very conservative, and they want like super classic things. Yep. It's probably just straight up 50 spec on there. The 355 also had an ebony fretboard. So it's kind of like, I guess if you think like Les Paul standard, Les Paul custom.
Yeah.
And, the 355 was more your Les Paul custom thing where, they'd often come with gold hardware and block inlays, ebony fretboard. You might have a vibrola or a Bigsby on there as well. So it's kind of pimped out.
Yep.
And then the 345 had a Veritone on there. And then the 335 was just like, it's an electric guitar that, you can go and do stuff with. And obviously, as a blues guitar, that's probably where a lot of people know it, right? B.B. King, Lucille, also Freddie King, I think played a 345 or a 355. Albert King was just out there bossing all the other Kings, playing a flying V upside down, like a mad dog. Which explains so much about, when you hear... So here's the thing, you hear like Stevie Ray Vaughan, and everyone copies Stevie Ray Vaughan, and there's that kind of like... thing that he does. That's straight up Albert King thing, or the like... But he's playing a flying V, right? Upside down, so he's pulling down on the E string. So he's got this massive mechanical advantage, which is why he was doing all those like two-tone bends and, you don't have your John Sykes without your Albert King, basically, because the guy was pushing the limits. Anyway,
direct lineage.
The direct lineage, ladies and gentlemen. Unrelated, I was watching a thing, friend of the podcast, Ben Wilson, was around the other week. We were watching some Thin Lizzy live videos. And I've always wondered, when you listen to like John Sykes, sometimes it sounds like he's got a whammy bar, but he's clearly playing a Les Paul. There's this clip where, he bends the string in the space between the bridge and the tailpiece.
Oh, right.
I was like, hey, so, he's doing a which I'd never seen. So that was kind of cool. Like, when you see like Phil X just do mental stuff on a Les Paul and you're like, that's how you make those cool sounds. Yeah.
My student Francis, he's trying to learn I can't remember which song it is. It's like a Rush solo that he's trying to learn, but it's clearly got like whammy bar stuff in it. Or there's something.
Is he doing Limelight?
No, it's not Limelight. I can't remember which one it is.
Okay.
I'll find out. I've seen him this afternoon. Anyway, he's trying to read the tabs and stuff, and he was like asking me, like, he's listening to the thing, and he's asking me on the tab or the music, like, what these things are, and it's like, well, it's clearly just
yeah,
and or doing dive bombs, or not dive bombs. He's just doing like all this sort of shit. And he's got like effectively Les Paul style guitars. It's like, how do I do it? I'm like, man, like really the only thing you can do is like start by like
you can pre-bend,
which is pretty cool. Like, but not in that solo. It's like really, it's like a little too much to do. But I love doing that stuff, man. It's such a great effect. It's like once you can get
the Jakey Lee thing where he got so good at just twisting the tuner and then bringing it back up into pitch.
I've never been brave enough to do that at the gig, man. It's pretty cool though. Like to have that sort of like understanding of how your instrument works and like that connection with it is pretty cool. But I think like all that stuff, until you can actually bend a string in tune, it's pretty difficult. Otherwise you're just like guessing like, it's amazing what you get used to in your fingers in terms of like the tension that your fingers are sensitive enough to know what is
it's interesting, hey?
Yeah, without like testing myself
fine
right now.
motor control.
Yeah, I reckon I could probably like blind bend a tone or a semitone or probably 3 semitones and probably get it pretty close to pitch.
Yeah.
Just through practice and experience and stuff. But anyway.
Just through pure dominance.
Through
so anyway, back to tell us about your 335, man, because it's got an interesting origin story.
I got this because that other 335 that I played in Adelaide a couple of years ago, I got so obsessed that I was trying to find a 335 equivalent because a real 335 was way too expensive. And I think pretty much with guitars, like you know this, I got a lot of guitars, but I usually get them pretty reasonably priced. I very rarely get anything.
You hunt around for a good deal, right?
Yeah, I love a good deal. And most of the time I've been successful. Like my Les Paul cost like $1,600 Australian. Like USA Les Paul, which you couldn't get that now for like less than maybe $3,000. So my Sir was really expensive, and that's probably about it. Like I paid not crazy money for that Explorer, but usually anything over $2,000, I'm a bit like, I don't know if I really want to spend that much money on a guitar, unless I find it a really good deal secondhand. So anyway, I was looking for 335 equivalents, and I was like, maybe there's like Tokai's and that maybe is an appropriate thing. I was looking at the Yamaha, the SA 2200s as well.
Yes.
Like they look like this. And I listened to people play them like back to back, and I was kind of like, I don't know if I really like it looks really cool. There is like a slight different tone that I didn't really like as much, but it was minimal, and I was probably just being picky. But I still have this thing of, I said this before, like, if you're going to buy the thing, if you want the thing, buy the thing. Like sometimes clones or close enoughs aren't really going to cut the mustard. Like if you want a Marshall, just buy a fucking Marshall. Oh no, that's not true. I guess, like, to be honest, like if I wanted a Marshall now and I had bucks, I'd probably buy a Friedman or a Headfirst or something like that. That's probably going to get the thing. But
like in particular, you know, people love to hang crap on Gibson. But if you want a Les Paul, like,
just buy Les Paul.
Buy a Les Paul.
Is there you could probably buy PRS, but there's probably not like there's like boutique Les Pauls, I guess.
Look, I will say the best Les Paul I've ever played was a Gil Euron clone. While I was doing the Zen thing, it was like, I've played a few 59 reissues, which are awesome guitars, and this was like a 59. It was a great replica.
Yep.
Like you play it and you're just like, okay, I can't tell. Like it felt properly like a good Gibson.
Yep.
And yeah, all the little details on it. It was just an amazing guitar, like an amazing guitar, and it was a burst style thing. I've got a video with it up on the channel. Also, there's a great segue back into the 335 thing. The doing the Zen videos. Yeah, they've got a 58 335.
That's right. Yeah, that looks kind of like this one, right?
Kind of looks like that one, yeah. And that was, man, great. It's just great. Like, yeah, a 50s Gibson. They're probably
prohibitively
there's no
expensive.
such thing as a good value 50s Gibson anymore. But I think if you were going to get a 50s or 60s Gibson, you pay the Les Paul tax, right? Mm-hmm. That's a thing. They're so much more expensive. But I think if you wanted that sound, getting a 335 from that era would probably be the more affordable option, right? Yep. If you really wanted a vintage guitar,
more that vintage
Gibson
stuff.
Tone. Yeah,
juniors are.
The thing is with juniors though, it's like they're juniors. They've got their own energy going on. 335s have their own energy, but I feel like you can get a little closer to the twin humbucker Les Paul thing that people are chasing. But yeah, that 58, man, that was incredible.
Yeah.
Like, and it's one of those things where you start playing it and it's like, I was sitting there playing it just through they've got a 70s J&P badge plexi. And I was like, man, this is like the sound. But then you put it into drop D and it's instant like Soundgarden.
Right.
And just, yeah, they're like a great kind of grungy character guitar as well. Yeah. And, again, you want to do AC/DC on a 335, it's so good because it's kind of, the AC/DC recipe is SG plus Gretsch, right? So it's kind of
a bit in the middle.
Kind of a bit in the middle. You can sort of wing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's so good, especially when you find a good one. It's worth as well. You kind of touched on it, but get the thing. But if you can't really afford to get the thing, like what else is out there that's got a similar vibe? Because I know some people, there's lots of great alternatives, like the Epiphone Dots. I've had students who have them. They're awesome guitars. They're probably, well, up until recently, I played a few Epis that I was really, really impressed with, but I feel like they've consistently been really good. And, like bloody, what's his name? Gallagher has the signature 335. I'm like played Epiphones as well, like. So
oh, wait, yeah,
one of the biggest. Oasis. Yeah.
Oasis, yeah. I was like, wait, which Gallagher are you talking about? Yeah, I know the one. Yep.
Not Rory, the other one.
Yeah.
Which is so funny because, man, I like hated Oasis so much growing up as a kid because all the English kids at school were like, you like Oasis? You play guitar? And, there's still like a band I'm probably not going to listen to in my spare time.
Yep.
But I went down just watching interviews with Noel Gallagher he's a hilarious man.
Yeah. They just don't give any fucks. It's awesome. It's nice to see people be that so transparently good. Not giving fucks.
I can't believe they got him on that pedal show, and he's just sort of like, yeah, I watched the show and like I love stomp boxes. I don't know how to use them, but I'll just like see them and I'll just buy it, and just be like, cool, how does it work? And yeah, like, because reading interviews with him, he always just seemed like the world's grumpiest, humorless prick. But he's actually the world's grumpiest, funniest prick.
I remember he was on the panel. Remember the panel that used to be on Channel 9 in like the early 2000s?
God, the panel.
Yeah, and he was on one time there, and I was like, okay, he's on this TV show, so he must be the good Gallagher brother. And then there's not really a good Gallagher brother. They're both about as good or bad as each other, but they're not necessarily the worst.
No, I dig Noel, man. Like, I just seeing him on like all those British TV shows, and like he's fuckless, and he's funny. You know, you can tell. There was there's a few good stories floating around where it's like, I think they were meant to get a Brit Award or something like that, and he was just like, we were just at the studio recording, and then we all just got hammered and then forgot about it and just didn't go. So the camera kept panning to these like empty seats, and he was like, yeah, man, we were just blasted. Like, you know, we'd work, but then we'd also like hang out and have a good time. So one of those guys where it's like, he's like, he just wakes up in the morning, has a coffee, sits down for a few hours, tries to write a song, and then continues with the rest of his life. Like, that's the routine. So,
amen.
Yeah, not a bad way to be. But yeah, that's someone I always think of like, because he doesn't give a fuck. He's like, Epiphone. Well, it's the same shape and it sounds good.
Yeah,
so
it's fine.
Sick. Heritage. There's actually a Heritage. They call it the 535.
Yeah.
For sale, like 2Ks from here for like 3K.
My buddy Scott's got one of those, man. Scott, he's listening to this probably. Like, Scott's Heritage one is awesome.
Is Scott in Sydney?
Yeah, he's in. Yeah.
Man, I got to hit him up. I got to like hang out. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I should have said that. Yeah, I'll tell him. But
shout out to Scotty.
Anyway, I got his Cornford too, so it's down. Oh, you can't see it. But no, the Heritage ones are good. I said, like, I looked around, like, before I got this, I was like looking for them sort of on and off for a few months, and then, like, with this guitar, the reason I got it is one of my clients who I'd done an album with him, like, I think in 2020 roughly, and he was looking to do some solo stuff, and he had mentioned that he had a 335 that he bought it and loved it, and then was a bit like, oh, I don't know if I really like this guitar that much, and so I was having a chat to him, like, have you still got that guitar? And he said, yeah, and you know, I'm thinking about selling it, and I was like, and then he just said, like, hey, do you want to trade me recording and my solo album with you for the guitar? And I was like, yep, lock it in, let's do it. Because I think, again, for the price, like, this is probably $5,000 maybe in Australia to buy. $5,000's like, that's probably pushing it for me, what I feel comfortable like spending on a guitar, which like knowing that it's probably a little delicate to take to a lot of gigs. Like, I don't, like, I take the Explorer to the Optus Stadium gigs because it's like, it's a showpiece sort of thing. Because
it's a coffee table?
Yeah. This thing, though, I was like, I love playing it, but I figured it'd be more of a studio thing. And, since, like, $5,000 for that, I was a bit sort of on the fence about. But anyway, we did it. I thought the solo album for him was not going to take that long to do, which is why I went for that at all. Because I can sort of, like, put the time away in the week to do it, and he probably got a much better deal than than I did on that. But in saying that, like, the guitar's been awesome, and Tim had it for a little while. He's played it, and the only thing that is wrong with it is this bridge here, the screw coming out that the bridge sits on is just.
Have you got a tailpiece as well? You got a stop tail on your guitar?
That one.
Yep. Okay, cool. So obviously different to this. This has the trapeze thing.
Yeah. But this little screw here just needs to be trimmed down, which I didn't want to take the bridge off it and, like, do it myself.
Yeah, right.
And just risk, like, because it's been set up so well. Like, I know with these, like, the screws that they rest on will, like, move very easily once I adjust it. So I just need to give it back to Tim and get him to, like, chop that down. I had a bit of tape over it for a while, and the tape's fallen off, but that made it, like, basically you couldn't really tell it was an issue. But now that's fallen off, it sort of gets a bit, like, digs into your hand a little bit. But I've used this on a bunch of sessions. Just when I need a humbucker guitar, like, this has kind of been the one I've been going for.
Yeah, that's
I haven't been playing my Charvel as much recently, which is a very different sort of sound, like with a Duncan JB in it. It's more of a shred guitar. But that one's probably a little too, it's a little too pronounced. This one, it's like it sounds awesome, but it can also blend pretty well, and it just sounds like a guitar sound. The other one's a bit more like look at me.
Yeah.
And I really like it in the bridge, in the neck too, because sometimes I find like humbuckers in the neck just a little too thick, and I sort of did that thing where, because it just never occurred to me, like when you dial in like two humbucker guitars, dial it in according to the neck pickup, and then the bridge kind of like I almost
and you've
always
got a tone control on the bridge if it's way too bright.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's I'm typically like a bridge type of a cat, but if I dial it a little bit more for that, everything sort of sounds pretty cool. I've gigged with it a few times. The only reason that I don't gig with it more is I find the pickup selector switch here in a really uncomfortable position. I can't.
Yeah, it's a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm like with a Strat or a Tele. For me, it's usually just like I play a lot of the gig if I'm on if I'm doing like a slightly cleaner gig, I'll do it mostly in the neck, and then I'll flick to the bridge if I go to a solo or maybe something a little flatter. But I gig with it. I just could not find the switch. Like when I'm strumming and I'm like, I need to just intuitively go there, and it's partly because just the actual plane of which it exists is in line with the bridge too much, and like because it's like on the bottom part of the arch, I just find it really difficult to go for.
I think because this has the trapeze, there's more space.
Oh yeah.
You don't have the tail piece right
there.
No,
that's exactly right. And also,
but I also confuse it with the coil tap here.
Right.
So,
but like, see, I've got
there it is.
I've got that on the Gibson, and I don't really like that there as well. Which is actually weird because do you know what else? On a Les Paul, I hate having the pickup selector there. So but
you're just never happy.
I'm never happy on a Gibson. Like on Strats and Tellies and stuff, it's not really an issue. But I sort of struggle with this. But the other thing on this guitar that I probably don't like as much is just the knobs are very small to grab. Like I can't just like quickly do it with the pinky. I've got to like really grab onto it.
Oh, you'd be used to grabbing a small knob though.
But I mean, like, there's a few. Those are little things that, in terms of doing a gig and what I'm used to grabbing, I don't like it as much. But
actually, that reminds me, I got to get some metal top knobs for this and get it like the full 70s.
Oh yeah,
vibe.
I know what you mean.
That's just, I love those on a 335. The other thing as well, we haven't talked about too many alternatives, but there's also like heaps of other 335 derivations, right? So there was the 333. Which is like a stripped down version. They did a 336 where I think the back and the center block were all carved from one piece of wood.
Okay.
My dad actually made a 335 style guitar for someone where the entire back piece, like he took a giant piece of Jarrah burl, right? He sliced off like a fillet basically from it, and then carved out the entire. So the top was cut off from the same piece of wood, but then the back and the center block were all one piece of wood.
Right.
Then carved the top and put it back on. And that's a pretty rad guitar. He made that for one of his clients. But yeah, then you've got the 347, where it's a 345, but it's got a coil tap instead of the Veritone.
Oh, okay.
And what was the other one? It was like a smaller bodied 335.
That's not like 350, is it?
Maybe.
Or the 330?
Maybe.
No.
And there's like the ES, obviously we're not getting to like the 295 and the 175s. They're totally different guitars. But the 330 TD has like a hollow body and it's got P90s and stuff like that. There was the... what was the one? You also got a 359, which is like a fancy version of the 333. But yeah, it was basically, what do they call it? The Midtown?
Oh, okay,
Do you remember those?
I've seen that name, yeah.
Is that the... I'm trying to remember I need to look up a photo of this and I feel like it was a smaller body 335 kind of thing. Yeah, Gibson Midtown Custom. So it's scaled down. Kind of like, when you have, there's those Explorers, which are the body scaled down. Yeah, so it kind of, you look at it and you go, it's a 335, but the body's a bit smaller. And then they had, obviously, the semi-hollow Les Pauls. And remember the Nighthawk? Totally unrelated.
Doesn't Ben have one of those?
Yeah, he's got one. But I didn't realize, I remember just thinking they had a cool body shape. But one, I didn't realize how small they were. And two, it's like
they're quite
Firebird
thin.
pickup. single coil
Right.
humbucker and a 5-way switch. So you've got it's like Gibson greatest hits.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had these posters as a kid. They were like a Gibson catalog, and they had the designer series and the Les Paul. So you could fold them all the way out and you'd have all the different models, but on the back it would be like a poster of Slash or BB King or someone like that. So I've still got them somewhere, but I used to love looking at them because it was like the Explorer looked exactly like yours. And yeah, they were just really cool photos. I mean, now this wouldn't exist. It'd just be on the internet. But yeah, I spent a lot of time just staring at those, kind of digging that. But yeah, the Nighthawks, I remember being like, man, that's a cool looking guitar. I just liked the smaller body. And what else did they have? The Blues Hawk and a few other things.
I saw a Blues Hawk for sale here like a couple of weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah.
The other company as well, was it the Guild Starfire that was their 335?
They're a little different, I think, in terms of the aesthetics, at least.
Yeah, definitely a different aesthetic.
Are they thinner as well? Sort of I feel like they're a bit thinner of a guitar.
Yeah, they're in that kind of close enough to if you were squinting, you go, oh yeah, 335. There's there's one in the exact same color as this actually that I'm looking at, which is funny. And it's funny because there's obviously a bunch of signature 335s as well. Obviously the BB King Lucille, which I don't think has the F-holes.
I think you're right, yeah.
Because apparently he used to stuff the F-holes to stop it from feeding back. And there's a Lifeson one. The Chris Cornell signature as well, I always thought looked really cool.
There was one of those for sale recently too for just an extravagant amount of money.
Yeah, obviously, then there's the Tom DeLonge one. And the one, is it with there was, so what was the one? The Trini Lopez?
Yeah.
Most people know it as the Dave Grohl guitar because, he got into them. But, man, the Chris Cornell Tribute ES 335 list price in Australia, $8,500.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big chunk of change. I mean, awesome looking guitar. And yeah, there's also, did they do a 335 with a Firebird neck as well at one stage? Or am I thinking that's the Dave Grohl DG 335?
I think that's probably it, yeah. Well, that's what the Trini Lopez thing is, isn't it? It's just got that sort of headstock on it.
Yeah, I think the DG 335, it's a 335 with the Trini inlays and the Trini headstock. It's a bit different to a Firebird.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool.
Oh, no, yeah, you're right. Sorry, the Firebird's more of a reverse headstock sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, because they did a non-reverse Firebird as well, which, the Firebird is a sick-looking guitar. The non-reverse one, to me, looks, I don't know, it's almost as bad as looking at a left-handed guitar.
There's a Lizzie Hale signature Explorer at Manny's at the moment.
Oh, really?
Which is red, but it's got a Firebird headstock on it.
Ah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
You just put a Firebird headstock on anything and it's kind of cool. Or an Explorer headstock on anything and it's kind of cool.
I think now having an Explorer that I've spent a bit of time playing, I'd probably like to try a Firebird again. I never really liked playing yours that much. It didn't really quite... we've talked about it before. It's like you're playing the guitar out there. But yeah, I probably just need to get an SG, man. That's probably my next Gibson. But
the next part of the strategy. It's funny. So my uncle had wanted an SG for a long time, and he bought one. He a black one, 2010s ish. Got a pretty good deal on it, and then he was retiring from he's retired now. So one of the people he works with, who he'd brought along to some ragdoll gigs, she sent me a message on Instagram. Was like, oh hey, everyone here loves Tony. He's a legend. We want to buy him something. We've got we got a few grand to spend on something. He mentioned a bass or something. They ended up buying him. So he bought a black SG. They ended up buying him another black SG.
All right.
So he went from no SGs to 2 SGs in about the space of a week.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I've been man, you got to put Filtertrons or P90s in one of them. I don't know if he's going to flip one of them or something like that and get something else, but. Yeah, they're both really, really good guitars. It's one of those things where you hold a 335 and someone's yeah, BB King. You have an SG here and people are Angus.
Yeah, I think I've come around to the sound of SGs a bit more. They just didn't really do it for me. There's been a few times when that sound I think has been it's sort of been missing from the library here. You know,
right.
It's kind of like when I play this, it's like it's a really beautiful sounding instrument, and I want maybe something that doesn't have quite the like breadth of tone, just to sit.
You want mongrel,
like a little bit of mongrel. But like my definition of mongrel has also changed, because I used to think of like I love Nuno Betancourt's tone, but there's like something about that there's like a bit of filth on it. And I really used to respond to that. And I used to associate a similar thing to an SG, even though that's really not what that sounds like. But it looks like it should sound like that. So it's really, really silly. But I think like...
Again, it's short men tone.
Says the big 6-footers over here. So, yeah, it'll be on the thing. Same as a Jazzmaster. I should probably get a Jazzmaster at some point. But I'm too busy buying speakers and amps and
that's a discussion
bills,
for a
bills.
future podcast, right?
Yeah.
What you're doing with all the speakers and all those things. So
Anyway,
you got to go and grab my Marshall while I'm away and blast it. And
I think maybe in a week or two,
maybe
not next podcast, maybe the one after that, we can have a bit more of a chat about the top secret business that's been happening at the studio.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, we'll see.
Possibly TX rated.
Yep.
All right, bro. Let's kill it. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Let us know your favorite 335 players, alternatives, 335's if you got one. What are you rocking? How do you like it? Have you changed stuff? Do you just leave it stock? Obviously the frets have been changed on this, but this guitar is like stock and it's totally fine stock. I don't feel the need. Well, also, changing the pickups or the electronics in this would be a fucking nightmare.
Yep.
Shout out to my buddy Phil, actually, who a while ago tidied this guitar up and changed the pots and did the work that I was not prepared to do in terms of, getting tubes on the pot. Yeah, that's a whole separate skill set, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just have to really want to do it and not get bored halfway through. That's what happens sometimes.
Exactly. Sweet as. All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching the Gear Podcast. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Bye.